I want to ask you something that might sound strange at first. Think about someone you know, maybe yourself, who went through a real transformation. Not just physically, I mean a full shift. The way they carry themselves, the decisions they make, the way they talk about their future. Someone who genuinely become a different version of themselves over a period of months or years. Now think about where that transformation started. What was the first move? In my experience, and I have thought about this a lot, more often than not, the answer involves the body. A sport they picked up, a training routine they committed to, a physical practice they started as just a physical thing and end up being something much larger than that. And that's what I want to explore today, because I don't think sport is really about sport. I think it's a doorway. I think it might be the most underrated tool for personal change that exists. Not because it makes you fitter, but because of what it quietly does to your identity, your discipline, and your belief in your own ability to keep a promise to yourself. Today's question: what if sport is the first step you actually need to change your life? Here is the problem with how we usually talk about sport and exercise. We frame it almost entirely around outcomes: lose weight, build muscle, run faster, live longer. And those things are real, I'm not dismissing them. But when the entire conversation is about physical outcome, we miss the deeper mechanism. We miss what's actually happening underneath the surface when someone commits to a physical practice and stick with it. Because here is what I have come to believe. The body is the easiest place to start changing, and the changes don't stay in the body. Think about why that might be true. The feedback loop in physical training is unlike almost any other domain in life. You show up, you do the work, you feel different immediately. Not in 6 months, not when the results arrive right now. In the session, you feel the effect of your efforts. That immediate feedback is incredibly rare. In finance, for example, you invest and wait years. In your career, you work hard and maybe get recognized eventually. In relationships, growth is slow and often invisible. But in sports, you push, you feel it. The cause and the effect is direct, fast, and undeniable. That feedback loop does something to the brain. It starts to build a connection between effort and the outcome that most people have genuinely never felt before. And once that connection is established in one domain, it starts actually to transfer. Let's start with what sport actually teaches you, not physically but mentally. And I want to start with the one thing I think is most underrated: keeping a promise to yourself. Most people who are struggling to change their life, their finances, their mindset, habits, are struggling because somewhere along the way they stop trusting themselves. They have set goals and abandoned them enough times that the decision to start something new comes preloaded with doubt. I will try already contains the exit. The commitment is never fully made because the track record doesn't support it. And this is where sport does something extraordinary that nothing else quite replicates. When you decide to train and you actually show up, you make a promise to yourself and you keep it. That sounds simple, but is not. For a lot of people, this is genuinely one of the most unfamiliar experience they can have. Saying, I will do this, and then doing it. Not because someone is watching, not because there is an immediate reward, just because you said you would. The first week you do that, it means very little. The ninth week, it starts to mean something. The 6 month, it has fundamentally changed the relationship you have with yourself. You become someone who follows through. And that identity, I follow through, doesn't stay at the gym door. It walks with you into every other area of your life. You start keeping other promises to your finances, to your work, to the people around you. Not because you forced yourself to be more disciplined across the board, but because the self concept shifted. You became, in your own mind, a person who does what they say. The second thing sport teaches you, and this one is less obvious, is how to be uncomfortable on purpose. We live in a world that is almost entirely optimized for comfort. Everything is designed to reduce friction, reduce effort, reduce discomfort. And in a lot of ways, that's genuinely great, but there is a cost that nobody talks about. When you never practice being uncomfortable, you lose the ability to tolerate it. And life, real life, the kind that involves growth and change and risk, is full of discomfort. It doesn't go away just because you have eliminated it from your daily routine. It just hits you harder when it arrives because you have lost the capacity to sit with it. Sport is one of the only spaces left in modern life where you voluntarily choose difficulty. You go to a training session, and there is a moment every single time where your body says stop and you decide whether to listen or not. That moment is not really about fitness. That moment is a rehearsal for every hard decision you will ever make outside that room. The person who trains regularly is not just physically stronger, they are practicing repeatedly the act of choosing discomfort over comfort when it matters. And that practice compounds actually over months and the years. The threshold shifts. Things that used to feel unbearable start to feel manageable. Not because life got easier, but because you got more capable. That capacity translates directly to the hard financial conversation you have been avoiding, to the business idea you have not started because it feels risky, to the relationship dynamic you have not addressed because it feels uncomfortable. Sport does not solve all those things, but it builds the muscle, the actual psychological muscle that makes you capable of facing them. The third mechanism is one that ties everything together, and it goes back to something I talked about in an early episode: identity. When you commit to a physical practice long enough, something shifts in how you describe yourself. You stop saying, I'm trying to get fit, and you start saying, I train. You stop saying, I'm not really a sporty person, and you start saying, I run, I lift, and I play. That linguistic shift is not cosmetic, it reflects a genuine change in self concept. And as I talked about before, identity is the most powerful driver of behavior there is. Once you see yourself as someone who trains, the behavior becomes self reinforcing. Missing a session feels wrong, showing up feels natural. The effort required to maintain the habit drops dramatically because it's not longer a habit, it's just who you are. And here is the part I found mostly fascinating. That new identity, the one built through physical commitment, creates a template. Your brain now has evidence that you can change. Real, lived, embodied evidence. Not a book you read, not a podcast you listened to. Something you actually did repeatedly with your own body over time against resistance. That evidence is the most valuable thing sport gives you. Because when you face the next challenge, the financial decision, the relationship that needs work, you are not starting from zero. You are starting from a place where you already know in your bones that you are capable of changing, that you have done it before. That discomfort does not mean stop. That the version of you 6 months from now is worth the version of you today being uncomfortable. Sport gives you proof of self, and proof of self changes everything. So, is sport the first step you need to change your life? I think for a lot of people, yes. Not because there is something magical about running or lifting or playing, but because of what those things do to the three things that actually drive change: your identity, your tolerance for discomfort, and your belief in your own capacity to follow through. The gym was never really about the gym. It was about becoming the kind of person who shows up when they don't feel like it, who chooses hard when easy is available, who looks at a long road and decides to walk it anyway because the destination is worth it actually. And once you become that person in one context, even a small context, even 3 training sessions a week, that person starts showing up everywhere. In the financial decisions you stop avoiding, in the hard conversations, in the version of your life you stop pretending you don't want. Most people are waiting for motivation to arrive before they start. They are waiting to feel ready, to feel confident, to feel like the version of themselves who could actually do it. But that version does not arrive before the action, it arrives because of it. You don't wait until you feel like a different person to start. You start, and the starting is what makes you different. Sport is just the clearest, most immediate, and most honest place to begin that process because the body doesn't lie, it doesn't accept excuses, it responds to what you actually do, not what you intend to do, and not what you tell people you are going to do. Here is your one thing, and I want to be specific about this, not vague like go exercise more. Pick one physical commitment, just one, not a program, not a transformation plan, not a 90-day challenge. just one requiring commitment that puts you in a room or on a court or on a road or in a pool at a specific time on specific days that you can keep for the next 4 weeks. It doesn't have to be intense, it doesn't have to be impressive, it just has to be real and it has to be yours. A commitment small enough that skipping it would feel like choice, not an inevitability. And then keep it, not perfectly, just consistently. Show up when you feel like it and show up when you don't. Because what you are not really doing is training. What you are doing is building evidence, proof, one session at a time, that you are someone who does what they say. Everything else follows from that. The financial discipline, the mental clarity, the willingness to take risks that matter, it all starts in the same place, with a body that has learned to trust the mind that runs it. That's it for today. If this landed for you, share it with someone who has been waiting to start. See you in the next one.